Have you ever like stopped and thought about like why some faces just totally grab your attention?
Yeah.
It's actually super interesting. There's like a whole science behind it.
Right.
It goes way deeper than just like, oh, they're good looking.
Right.
So today we're going to do a deep dive
Okay.
into facial symmetry
Ooh,
and like how much it plays into how we see attractiveness.
interesting.
We're looking at studies from like evolutionary biology and psychology.
Okay.
And like, get this, a perfectly symmetrical face can actually be kind of creepy.
Oh, wow. Really? I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it's true.
Wow, that's wild.
So I guess to start, like one of the biggest theories out there is that, you know, why we like symmetrical faces is because of like evolution.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So symmetry, especially in faces, it usually means good genes and good health. So back in the day, that made someone a better mate, you know,
Right?
like evolutionarily speaking.
Like survival of the fittest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like the people who were into symmetrical faces,
Yeah.
they were more likely to pick healthy partners, and then their kids would inherit those strong genes.
Okay, I see.
And this isn't just like some made-up idea.
Right.
Studies have shown that even monkeys, like rhesus macaques,
Wow, really?
yeah,
That's cool.
they like looking at symmetrical faces more.
Huh, interesting.
So if monkeys do it, it's probably something deep in our evolution too, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so then why do some people say a totally symmetrical face, like if you mirrored one side of someone's face to make it perfect, is actually as attractive? Shouldn't perfect symmetry be like the best?
Well, you know, it's actually more complicated than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there are a bunch of different theories about this.
Like what?
So one idea is called the naturalness hypothesis.
Okay.
Basically, it says that we evolved to like symmetry in a world where perfect symmetry was rare.
Right.
So a face that's a tiny bit asymmetrical
Yeah.
might be more appealing because it shows that someone's done well, even with some challenges.
So like imperfections could actually make someone hotter.
Well, hotter might be subjective, but in a way,
That's so interesting.
right. It's like they're resilient.
Okay, what about that accent hypothesis thing?
Oh, yeah, that one's cool.
What is that?
So the accent hypothesis says that little asymmetries can actually make the symmetry you DOC stand out more.
Wait, so the imperfections actually highlight the symmetry?
Exactly.
It's like adding contrast to a painting?
Yeah, like that.
So it makes the colors pop more?
Exactly.
I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
And then there's that handicap one, right?
Yeah, the handicap hypothesis.
What's that about again?
That one suggests that thriving, even with imperfections, could be a sign of strength.
So it's like they're strong enough to overcome those challenges
Right, exactly.
and still be attractive.
Yeah.
That's a cool way to look at it.
It's not just about being symmetrical. It's about what that symmetry says about how they developed.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about why evolution might make us like symmetry, but what's going on in our brains when we see a symmetrical face?
Ooh, good question.
Is there like a scientific reason for it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So basically, symmetrical faces are easier for our brains to understand. And that ease makes us feel good.
So it's like, it's just pleasing to look at.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
when you see something that's just like easy on the eyes.
Exactly. It's kind of like that.
So it's like our brains are wired to find symmetry
Pretty much.
because it takes less effort to process it.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
And there's research that shows symmetrical faces make people think of positive personality traits.
Really?
Yeah, like being outgoing and friendly.
So a symmetrical face could make you think someone's more fun to be around.
It could, yeah.
Wow. So it's not just about looks then.
Right.
It's about how we judge their personality too.
It can be, yeah.
But wait, I thought I read somewhere that symmetrical people can actually score lower on some personality tests.
Oh, yeah, there's some research on that too.
So like, what's the deal with that?
Well, it seems like some people might see super symmetrical people as less open or less agreeable.
So it's not always a good thing then.
It's complicated, yeah.
So symmetry isn't like a simple answer for who's attractive or what their personality is like.
Exactly.
It's more nuanced than that.
Definitely.
It's crazy how much our brains read into just someone's face.
It really is.
And there's even more to it.
Oh, like what?
There's research that says how attractive we think we are can change who we find attractive.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
So like, if you think you're hot, you might be more into symmetrical faces.
Huh. That's fascinating.
It's like our own self-image creates this feedback loop,
That's really interesting.
and it affects who we're attracted to.
Wow. I never thought about that before.
But what about people who aren't perfectly symmetrical?
Yeah.
Like, what causes that in the first place?
Well, that's a whole other can of worms. Lots of things, actually.
Like what?
It can be, genetics or stuff in the environment. Even like our emotions can make our faces a bit asymmetrical.
Really?
Yeah. Did you know, like, the right side of our mouth moves more when we talk?
Huh. No, I never noticed that.
Yeah. It's because of how our brains are wired.
So, like, why does that happen?
The left side of your brain is usually the one that handles language.
Okay.
And it's got stronger connections to the right side of your face.
Oh, interesting.
So when we speak, those connections make the right side of our mouth move more.
Wow. So it's like our faces are showing what's happening in our brains.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's crazy.
But sometimes, if someone's face is really asymmetrical,
Yeah.
it can be more than just like a quirky thing.
Right. It can actually cause problems.
Exactly.
But what?
Well, there's something called vertical heterophoria.
Okay.
It's where like one eye is higher than the other.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah. And it can mess with your vision. Like you might see double,
Yeah.
get headaches, even feel dizzy.
Wow. So it's not just about how it looks. It can actually affect your health.
Exactly.
And then there's that whole thing about mirrors flipping our image, right?
Oh, yeah. Facedness.
Does that like mess with how we see ourselves?
Totally.
How so?
Well, think about it. We always see ourselves flipped,
Right.
but everyone else sees the like original version.
So we're basically living in two different face realities.
Kind of, yeah.
That's trippy.
It makes you wonder how much that flipped image shapes how we see ourselves.
That's a good
The
point.
research says it even affects how we act around other people.
Really?
Yeah. And maybe even our self-esteem.
I can see that.
Like if we only see a reversed image, we might not get how others actually see us.
It's like we're missing a part of the picture when it comes to our own face.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've talked a lot about symmetry and how it affects whether we think someone's attractive, but it's obviously not the only life thing, right?
Definitely not.
Like sometimes a little asymmetry can be cute, even it can make someone more unique.
I agree.
So is there like a universal standard of beauty when it comes to faces?
That's a tough one.
Or does it change a lot depending on the culture?
Well, studies show that people pretty much everywhere like symmetrical faces.
Right.
So that seems to be like a human thing.
Okay.
But there are definitely cultural differences.
Like what?
Some cultures might like certain kinds of asymmetry,
Huh. Interesting.
like a beauty mark in a specific spot.
Oh, right. Like Cindy Crawford and her mole.
Exactly. It's seen as a good thing in Western culture.
Yeah.
And in other places, they might have piercings or scars that they think make people more beautiful.
Even though that makes them less symmetrical.
Right. It's super interesting how different cultures see beauty in different ways.
It really shows that beauty isn't just about your features. It's about what those features mean to people.
Exactly.
And those meanings can be totally different depending on where you are.
And don't forget, beauty standards change all the time, too.
Yeah, that's great.
What's considered in now might be out later.
Right.
It's always evolving.
It makes you wonder what people will think is beautiful in the future.
Totally.
Maybe they'll be in stuff we don't even think about now.
It's definitely possible.
There are so many things that shape how we see beauty.
Yeah, like the media,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
technology, even our own experiences.
We can't ignore how much the media affects our beauty standards.
Yeah, especially with social media.
It's like we're constantly seeing perfect faces everywhere.
It's true.
And those pictures are usually edited a lot.
Yeah, heavily edited.
It sets up these crazy expectations for how people should look.
And that can be really tough on people.
For sure.
It's no wonder so many people feel like they have to look a certain way.
Yeah.
It can really hurt your self-esteem when you're comparing yourself to images that aren't even real.
Absolutely. So how do we deal with all of this?
Right.
Like all these changing beauty standards and the media and everything.
That's a lot.
How do we learn to appreciate how we look and not get caught up in those impossible expectations?
It's a good question. And it's something a lot of people are struggling with these days.
It's like almost impossible to know what real beauty even is anymore.
Yeah, it's tough.
Especially with all the filters and apps and stuff.
Oh yeah, technology definitely adds a whole other level to it.
Like now we can literally change how we look online.
Exactly. You can create like your ideal self.
Is that a bad thing though?
I don't know, it's tricky.
Like it can be fun to play around with those filters.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It can be empowering, too.
Definitely.
It also makes you think about, like, what's real anymore.
Right, it's a double-edged sword.
Like, are we all just going to be presenting these fake versions of ourselves?
Takes a risk, yeah.
And then how can you feel good about how you really look?
That's a good point.
When you're always comparing yourself to these filtered pictures.
Right, it's not a fair comparison.
So how do we balance it, you know? Like, have fun with the filters, but still stay grounded.
I think it's about being mindful.
Okay.
Like, using those tools for creativity,
Right.
for self-expression,
Right.
but not letting them tell you what your worth is.
That makes sense.
It's like remembering that they're just tools, not the truth.
But how do we, like, fight back against those crazy beauty standards we see online?
Well, it starts with you.
Okay.
You have to accept yourself.
Okay, yeah.
Like, really embrace the things that make you you.
Love yourself, basically.
Exactly. And recognize that beauty comes in all different forms.
It's not just one size fits all.
Right. It's about celebrating your individuality.
Not trying to fit into some mold that's probably fake anyway.
Exactly.
And remember, like, real beauty is often in the imperfections.
Yeah, the little quirks.
The things that make you different.
Those are the things that make you interesting, memorable.
Beautiful.
It's about more than just looks.
Absolutely.
It's about being kind, smart, funny.
Yes, those qualities shine through.
So it's like shifting your focus from what other people think to how you feel about yourself.
Exactly. You define what beauty means to you.
That's powerful.
It is.
And remember, beauty is subjective.
Totally.
What one person loves, someone else might not.
Right. There's no right answer.
This has been such a cool deep dive.
I've enjoyed it.
We've learned so much from like why humans are attracted to symmetry, to how our brains decide what's beautiful.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It's amazing how much goes into something we usually just like take for granted.
It really is.
So to wrap things up,
Okay.
what's the most important thing you want our listeners to remember?
I'd say don't be afraid to be yourself.
Love it.
Celebrate all the different kinds of beauty out there. And remember, real beauty goes way deeper than just your looks.
Well said.
Thank you. So next time you see someone you think is really beautiful,
Yeah,
maybe you'll think about all the stuff we talked about today
I hope so.
and like appreciate all the little things that make them unique.
Even the asymmetries.
Exactly.
It's fascinating to think about.
There's always more to it than you think.
You got that right.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of facial symmetry and attractiveness.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.